Hello everyone, I hope you're having a fantastic day. Today Scotty and I are in very sunny Edinburgh and we are, thank you very much Scotty, unboxing today the last of the March of the Machine Commander decks. This is Tinker Time. Yes, and we've finally finished the whole shebang, as they say. Now this deck is something of an oddball from what I've seen. I've not looked too much into it, but it looks interesting. As usual, these decks come with the Planechase cards, 10 of them, 5 and 5. 5 new and 5 old. You get 100 cards in total, and then an oversized foil-etched display commander, a deck box, a life wheel, a strategy insert, a reference card, the 10 double-sided token cards, and a Planar die. And on top of that, you also get a sample collector's booster. So far we've had a lot of fun opening these. As usual, we will go inside and give you an idea of how good this precon is, overall synergies, and how well it is built, and if it's going to need a lot of upgrading or not. Overall, our thoughts on the deck. So without further ado, this is Tinker Time. Let's get started. Right, so I've really enjoyed the decks of this expansion. Brimus was my favorite, but funny enough, I'm looking forward to this one as my second favorite, mainly because it looks like a really interesting idea. I will get to the commander as to why it seems like a very interesting idea, but anyway, let's look at the contents. As usual, you get the deck box, which we will create. You get a little envelope with the collection booster sample and the Planechase cards, and then you get the deck, the tokens, the spin dial wheel, a little bit of an insert, a leaflet to explain to you what's in here, and look at that, the beautiful Planechase die, which is really gorgeous. This one is my favorite so far, even though I love the purple one from the counters deck. That's really good. Okay, and then as usual you get the cardboard cutouts, and that's it. So let's have a look here at the die really quickly to see all the sides. Not bad. Then we will start as usual. Let's build up the deck box really quickly for you guys to see what's in. Looks like as usual the deck boxes do not hold the 100% of the deck if you sleeve it, so realistically it won't be useful for anybody who plays with sleeves, but it's something that, you know, hey, it helps new players have something to contain the cards in. Then you get the little introductory leaflet, which on one side explains to you the special rules of Commander, the most popular format of Magic the Gathering. And then you get Planechase, a little bit of introduction, and on the side you get the explanation of the deck and a little bit about the Commander proper. So you can pause if you want to have a read through that, and this looks really fun. Then we have a look at the collector's booster sample pack. This one will contain 2 cards and a token add card. Now the 2 cards, one will be a foil showcase card in the Planar booster fun, Multiverse Legends, and then the other one will be any kind of alternate version or extended art card. So here we go. Wow, so we get Omnath, the Locus of All. This is a great card, and it's in the showcase. And then we get Emotes, Celebrant of Bounty in the showcase foil. There you go. Not a bad card to pull off of here. Not a bad card at all. Okie dokie. Next up, we'll have a look at the Planechase cards proper. As usual, these are interesting. If you're in playing with Planechase, you get 5 new ones and 5 old ones. So without further ado, let's have a look at Plane Wide Disaster. This is a really cool art. Really good job, Dave Kendall. It's a phenomenon when you encounter Plane Wide Disaster, destroy all creatures. Oh yeah, definitely. Then you get Glimmerwood Basin. Oh, this is really cool from the plane of Mirrodin. Oh, that's really nice. Whenever a player casts an instant sorcery spell with a single target, that player copies the spell for each other spell permanent card on the battlefield, and or player the spell could target. Each copy targets a different one of them. Whenever chaos ensues, choose target creature. Each player except that creature's controller creates a token that's a copy of the creature. That's a really crazy card. Celestia Loft Gardens is a plain Ravnica. If an effect will create one or more tokens, it creates twice that many tokens instead. If an effect would put one or more counters on a permanent, it puts twice that many other counters instead on that permanent. This would have been great with the previous deck, the counters deck. Whenever chaos ensues until the end of turn, whenever you tap a land for mana, add 1 mana of any type that land produced. So this definitely would have been better with the Bright Palm Soul Awakener deck. Isle of Vesuva from the Planar Dominaria. Oh, it's Vesuva, that's really cool. Whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield, its control creates a token that's a copy of that creature, and whenever chaos ensues, destroy target creature and all other creatures with the same name as that creature. Stronghold Furnace, wow, that's really cool, from the Plane of Wrath. Source will deal damage to a permanent, or a player deals double that damage instead. Whenever chaos ensues, this card deals 1 damage to any target. The Wilds from the Plane of Eldraine, that's beautiful. When you planeswalk to the Wilds and at the beginning of your upkeep, you create a food token. Whenever chaos ensues, target player sacrifices a creature. If they do, you create a food token. You create 2 food tokens instead if the sacrificed creature toughness was 4 or greater. Girapur from Kaladesh, and this is at the beginning of combat of your turn. Until the end of turn, each non-creature, non-vehicle artifact you control becomes a 5/3 vehicle in addition to its other types and gets Trample, Haste, and Crew 2. Not bad. Whenever chaos ensues, return target non-creature artifact card from graveyard to your hand. Ooh, the Western Cloud, that's really beautiful. From the Plane of Gobakan. Prevent all damage that will be dealt to creatures and planeswalkers you control. Whenever chaos ensues, create 3 tap treasure tokens. They each deal 1 damage to each creature and each planeswalker. 10 Wizard's Mountain from the Plane of Shenmeng. Whenever you roll a planar die, put a +1/+1 counter on up to 1 target creature. And whenever chaos ensues, creatures you control gain flying until the end of turn. Again, something that would have been better with Bright Palm. New Archive from the Plane of Dominaria, that looks like the Triskelion from the Avengers. Whenever a historic creature you control attacks, it gets +2/+2 until the end of turn. And then whenever chaos ensues, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a historic card. Put that card in your hand and the rest on the bottom of the library in any order. As usual, the Planechase cards are extremely cool. It's really nice to see those planes and places that have been recounted in many cards and many lore. So that's really beautiful. Okay. Next up, we will have a look at the commander proper and the tokens contained inside, and then we will have a look at the deck. I don't know when this video will go up at the moment. Gimbal, the Gremlin Prodigy, is our commander. It's a 4/4 Gremlin Artificer legendary creature for 2 generic, 1 green, 1 white, and 1 red, which is an interesting combination. Artifact creatures you control have trample, and then at the beginning of your end step, you create a 0/0 red Gremlin artifact creature token, and you put X +1/+1 counters on it, where X is the number of differently named artifact tokens you control. And this is why I said that this deck is going to be really interesting, because you have to have differently named artifacts that you control. And of course, being a commander, of course you will have differently named artifacts, but the whole trick here is generating as many as you can in this color combination. And yeah, this is going to be a really fun deck. Next up, we have a Thopter and Treasurer with a backside of a Beast, Treasurer, and Gremlin. There they are. I wanted to see what the Gremlins look like. These are really cute. They're awesome. All right, then we get a Golem, another Golem, and the backside are Blood and Clue, of course. More Thopters with the backside of gold. Yes. Feather. That's nice. With the backside of the servo, and then Food with the backside of the replicated ring. So this is gonna be a very interesting deck. I want to see what they've done with it. I hope they didn't mess it up, because it does look pretty fun. Now let's see. Pull tab is here. Let's not make it up. Let's do this. Okay, so we've seen Gimbal already, the Gremlin Prodigy. Let's look at the general of the army. Rashmi and Ragavan combination. There's a 2/4 legendary creature, elf and monkey. It's a 1 generic, 1 green, 1 blue, 1 red, and whenever you cast your first spell during each of your turns, you exile the top card of your target opponent's library and create a treasure token. Then you may cast the exile card without paying its mana cost if it's a spell with mana value less than the number of artifacts you control. And if you don't cast it this way, you may cast it this turn. That's not bad. It's interesting, very interesting. I'm still trying to get a grip of how this deck is going to work, so I'll hold my judgment on that card so far, but let's see how it goes. Schema Thief is a 3/3. These are the 10 new cards. It's a 3/3 Vidalcan Rogue Artificer, 3 generic and 1 blue. It has flying and deals combat damage to a player. Create a token that's a copy of target artifact that player controls. Okay, that's not bad. That player controls, which means you can definitely go and create more and more uniquely named tokens for our Gimbal. Very nice. Sunstep War Rider is a 4/4 human warrior that costs 3 generic and 1 green, has trample, and at the beginning of combat on your turn, you bolster X, where X is the number of differently named artifact tokens. That's really good. Really good synergy. I like that. I think maybe the biggest nuisance to try and do with this deck is creating and generating the artifacts, because I don't know how many effects or cards that have effects that deal with uniquely named artifacts are out there, to be fair. But I think that's going to be the hardest part, is actual generation of tokens that are unique. Cutthroat Negotiator is an orc pirate, 4/3 for 2 generic and 1 blue and 1 red, has parlay, so whenever it attacks, each player reveals the top card of their library, so each player, including yourself. For each non-land card revealed this way, you create a tapped treasure token, then each player draws a card. Double-edged sword. I don't know that I want to be using that. There are better ways to create treasure tokens. Hedron Detonator is a 2/3 Goblin Artificer for 2 generic and 1 red. Whenever an artifact enters the battlefield under your control, this card deals 1 damage to target opponent, so that's very good. And then tap and sacrifice 2 artifacts, exile the top card of your library. You may play that card this turn. Not bad. It can be good in the right kind of deck if used correctly, and if you know what's on top, it can be good. Then you get the Ichor Elixir, which we've seen before, and Path of the Animist, which allows you to search your library for up to 2 basic land cards, put them onto the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle through 3 generic and 1 green. So this is a good, very actually good ramp spell. Pain Distributor is a Devil Citizen 2/3 Menacer for 2 generic and 1 red. Whenever a player casts their first spell each turn, they create a treasure token, and whenever an artifact an opponent controls is put into a graveyard from battlefield, this card deals 1 damage to that player. Not bad. Good treasure. Yep, it's not a bad treasure generation. It's a good card. I think it's also small cast. So this allows you to create an insane amount of treasure tokens. So whenever a player casts their first spell each turn, that's really, really good. You create a treasure token. And on top of that, whenever an artifact dies, you get to put 1 damage to a player, so that's really good. Dance with Calamity is a 7 generic and 1 red sorcery. You shuffle your library as many times as you choose. You may exile the top card of your library. Okay. If the total mana value of the cards exiled this way is 13 or less, you may cast any number of spells from among those cards without paying their mana cost. Okay, this is really, really cool. I like the gambling aspect of this, but it is something that is so risky that I don't think I would risk using myself. Yeah, it's not bad. Anyway, it's something, like I said, if you want to risk it, go for it, but it's something that I would remove. Pia and Kiran Nalar. This is a 2/2 human artificer for 2 generic and 2 red. When it enters the battlefield, you create 2 1/1 color Stopter artifact creature tokens with flying. Tap 2 generic and 1 red, sacrifice an artifact, and this creature deals 2 damage to any target. Sacrificing an artifact, that's not bad. Again, you're trying to keep as many unique artifacts as possible onto the board, so you gotta be careful with the whole sack artifact thing, but if you can keep generating them or copying them, why not? Feldon of the Third Path. This is a good card. It's a 2/3 legendary creature, human artificer for 1 generic and 2 red. For 2 generic and 1 red, and tap this card to create a token that's a copy of target creature card in your graveyard, except it's an artifact in addition to its other types. So this transforms any creature in the graveyard into a token that can then be used to buff up your main man commander's token. And then it gains haste and you sacrifice it at the beginning of your next end step. So for every time you can attack with this and you can buff your creatures more. It's not bad. It gives it basically an extra +1/+1 counter. It's not bad. Chaos Warp. This is a classic instant for 2 generic and 1 red. The owner of target permanent shuffles it into the library, reveals the top card of the library. If it's a permanent card, they put it onto the battlefield. Risky removal. I would not use it, but hey, some people like it. Oh, Stroke of Genius. This is a very classic card. Target player draws X cards. It's really expensive to do, so I don't know if I would use it unless you have combos to infinite it or, well, to ramp into it. It's definitely, there are better, especially in blue, better ways to draw cards. Academy Manufacturer. This is an assembly worker, 1/3 artifact creature for 3 generic. And if you would create a clue, food, or treasure token, instead create 1 of each. That is really nice. It allows you to spread out the tokens and create more. And of course, these tokens are actually doing something on board. So it allows you to draw, gain life, and not just interact with the cards that you have. So this is a good card to have with this kind of synergy. Aid from the Cowl. So 3 generic and 2 green enchantment. It has Revolt. At the beginning of your end step, if a permanent you control left the battlefield this turn, which easily can happen when you attack with your creatures and they get blocked, reveal the top card of your library. If it's a permanent card, you may put it onto the battlefield. Otherwise, you may put it onto the bottom. Extremely gambling, risky card. If you know what the top card is going to be with, other cards, then yes, definitely. If not, this is extremely risky and I definitely wouldn't risk it too much, but that's just me. Next up, we have the Battleforged Battle Axe, which is an artifact equipment for 1 generic. Okay, creature gets +2/+0 and you can equip for 2 generic, and whenever equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, you create a token that's a copy of this card. Ooh, I like that one. You can easily start equipping it to your Gremlin tokens or to other creatures, and it creates an extra token. Really love this one. Brass's Bounty is a 6 generic and 1 red sorcery. For each land you control, you create a treasure token. I mean, again, great idea of creating treasures, but there are better ones, and on top of that, you need to ramp to get to this point and create that many treasure tokens. Of course, next turn you have twice that many ways of creating and casting things, but it's really slow and expensive. Next up, we have the Cinder Glade, of course. Echo Storm. This is a sorcery for 3 generic and 2 blue. Whenever you cast this spell, copy it for each time you've cast your commander from the command zone in this game, and then you may choose new targets for the copies. That's interesting, and I love the art as well. Create a token that's a copy of target artifact. That's really good. Really, really good in this kind of deck. Really, really good. Yes, again, yes, you're creating copies of artifacts, but again, you have synergies in blowing up artifacts and sacrificing artifacts, so it's good to be able to create extras, because as soon as you lose one, you lose 1 on the board, so that's really annoying, and the extra copies, you always want to be using them, so it's not a bad card. I really like it. Evercrow Phoenix is a 4/4 Phoenix for 2 generic and 2 red, has mutate for 3 generic and 1 red. So whenever, if you cast this spell for its mutate cost, you put it over or under target non-human creature you own, they mutate into the creature on top plus all the abilities from under it. So has flying, and whenever this creature mutates, you create a red artifact token named Feather with 1 generic, sacrifice a feather to return target Phoenix cards from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. It's okay to create extra feather tokens, I guess, I don't know how many unique named artifact tokens there are off the top of my head, so it's always good to have that. And then again, if you're really wanting to get the best out of this, it might be better to go more heavily focused on artifact than creatures. So it's very much dependent upon how you build it up. Exotic Order, Fire Confluence, which is a sorcery for 2 generic and 2 red. You choose 3. You may choose the same mode more than once. It deals 1 damage to each creature, deals 2 damage to each opponent, or destroy target artifact. Better removals out there, but it's not a bad one. Frostboil Snarl, Game Trail, Gilded Goose. Oh, I love these Gilded Goose. I opened so many of them and throw them over the drain. Oh my god. I love this card. It's a 0/2 bird creature, and it's a 1 green to cast it. It has flying. Whenever it enters the battlefield, you create a food token, and then for 1 generic and 1 green, you tap to create another food token, and then tap to sacrifice a food to have 1 mana of any color. This is really good in this kind of deck. I really love it. Hellkite Igniter is a 5/5 dragon for 5 generic and 2 red. It has flying and haste, and then for 1 generic and 1 red, it gets +X+0 until the end of turn, where X is the number of artifacts you control. It's not bad. It can be really good. The thing is, it's really freaking expensive to play and to do everything. So by the time it becomes, well, something on the board, you're gonna be waiting a lot of time. So I don't know about it. Imprisoned in the Moon. That's beautiful. Look at that. Enchantment Aura for 2 generic and 1 blue. Enchant a creature, land, or planeswalker. The enchanted permanent becomes a colorless land with tap to add 1 generic, and it loses all other card abilities and types. Doesn't make much sense. There are better removals realistically. Inspiring Sanctuary is a 3 generic artifact. Non-artifact spells you cast have improvised, which means that your artifacts can help you cast those spells. Each artifact you tap after you're done activating mana abilities pays for 1 generic, so that's not bad. You can make all your artifacts fairly useful, because you're gonna have some artifacts that maybe you just don't do much with because they're so hard to get on the board, like the feather, for example. So at least with this, you can give them a new life, as you say. Ooh, Master of Ethereum. Now this is a good card. Star, 2 generic and 1 blue Vedalken Wizard artifact creature, and it gets basically power and toughness equal to the number of artifacts you control, and it gives other artifact creatures +1/+1. This is something that is really good in this kind of deck. Again, I would make this deck more artifact heavy on the creature side than it actually is, because artifact decks can be insanely strong, but they tend to become very samey. So you got to strike a balance. If you don't want to make them too samey, you can definitely play enough cards that make those unique artifacts tokens. Now, Masterful Replication. We've seen this before. For 5 generic and 1 blue, you choose 1, create 2 3/3 colorless golem artifact creature tokens. You choose a target artifact you control. Each other artifact you control becomes a copy of that artifact until the end of the turn. This one doesn't really make sense as a card. There are better ways of generating tokens, especially colorless golem tokens. Yeah, there are better ways. I don't think this is the greatest of cards because it's so expensive. Perplexing Test is a 3 generic and 2 blue instant. Choose 1, return all creature tokens to their owner's hands, or return all non-token creatures to their owner's hands. Now this is really good. So basically this allows you to Cyclonic Rift the opponent creatures, because you're going to be having tokens on the board. Of course, if you have a lot of non-token creatures that are artifacts, then this is going to be really annoying for yourself, but otherwise that's a good removal. Rise and Shine. This is a sorcery. I love the art of this one. For 1 generic and 1 blue, target non-creature artifact you control becomes a 0/0 artifact creature. You put up 4 +1/+1 counters on each artifact that became a creature this way, and you can overload it to do all creatures. Well, change target to each. So basically, all non-creature artifacts become. That's not bad at all. This is really good go-wide strategy. I like these 2 cards. Very nice. I would keep them. Sahili's Artistry. 4 generic and 2 blue. Just 1 or both. Create a token that's a copy of target artifact. Create a token that's a copy of target creature, except it's an artifact in addition to its other types. Very expensive for what it's trying to do. I like the second ability for this kind of deck, but it's really expensive. Really expensive. And again, you don't have a lot of ramp, and I'm sorry to say, the ramp in artifacts is really expensive. You'd have to go more on the green side to ramp into this, and I haven't seen a lot of ramp. Anyway, Sharding Phoenix, 4/4 Sphinx creature, artifact creature. For 4 generic and 2 blue, has flying, and whenever an artifact creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you may create a 1/1 blue Thopter artifact creature token with flying. Allows you to continuously create tokens that are Thopters. Not bad, but on this kind of deck, this is kind of expensive, but it's not bad. Shimmer Dragon is a 5/6 dragon from Throne of Eldraine. It has 4 generic and 2 blue costs. Has flying, and for as long as you control 4 more artifacts, it has hexproof. Okay. Tap 2 untap artifacts you control to draw a card. It's really expensive for what it's supposed to be doing, which is basically a card draw engine. It is a good flying creature, but again, there are better cards more suited for this. It does allow you to use those artifacts that you might not be able to use, like tokens that usually you don't use, but there are better cards out there, I would say. Skycleave Relic is an artifact for 3 generics, and you can kick it for another 3 generic. It's indestructible. When it enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, create 2 tap tokens that are copies of Skycleave Relic, and you can tap to add 1 mana of any color. And no. I mean, it's great they can have tokens that are copies of it, but again, you're looking at artifacts that have different names. So the tokens that you generated here, well, they don't have different names, unfortunately. So this is a bit annoying. Spell Swindle is a 3 generic and 2 blue instant counter target spell. Create X treasure tokens where X is that spell's mana value. Now this I like. This I like is a simple counter spell. It allows you to protect something, and you can create some treasure tokens in it backhand. So that's really good. Spine of Ishsa. Or Saw. It's 7 generic artifact, and when it enters the battlefield, you destroy target permanent, so that's really expensive. And when it's put into graveyard from the battlefield, return Spine of Isha to its owner's hand. This is not a bad removal if you have a lot of mana lying around. If you have a lot of Mana Dorks and Moxen, great, but the problem is that this is really freaking expensive, so otherwise, if you don't build the deck that way, do not play that card. Temple of Abandon, Epiphany, and Mystery. Thopter Assembly is a 5/5 Thopter artifact creature for 6 generic. It has flying at the beginning of your upkeep. If you control no Thopters other than Thopter Assembly, you will return Thopter Assembly to its owner's hand and create 5 1/1 colorless Thopter artifact creature tokens with flying. So this is not bad at all, because you put it down, you essentially can get kind of 11 down. No, so you can kind of get a 10/10 power in play. But it takes a couple of turns to do that, so you're going to be busy doing that and just that. I think there are better token generators than this one, especially for Thopters, but you know, if you have nothing else, why not? Thopter Spy Network, for example, this one. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you control an artifact, you create a 1/1 colorless Thopter artifact creature token with flying. However, 1 or more artifact creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, draw a card. This is a much better card than that one. It allows you to draw. This is a definite really good card for this kind of deck. Tireless Tracker. Now this is an interesting card to see here. I guess it's because it creates clue tokens whenever you landfall. It's a 3/2 human scout for 2 generic and 1 green. Landfall whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control. You investigate, creating clue token. Whenever you sacrifice a clue, put a +1/+1 counter on him. Of course, you'll be using this more for the generation, more so than the sack effect. I like the idea of being able to do that. It's not bad. I'll get to the point of the whole deck later. Vedalken Humiliator is a 3/4 Vedalken Wizard creature for 3 generic and 1 blue. Has Metalcraft, and whenever it attacks, if you control 3 or more artifact creatures you control, an opponent's control, lose all abilities and have base power, toughness 1/1 until the end of turn. There are better effects to do this, and it's not an artifact, so I would say no, stay away from this card. Vine Glimmer Snarl, of course. Worship Elders. Alright, it's a 4/4 human artificer for 6 generic and 1 blue. If I'm not mistaken, this was in the Brawl decks for Throne of Eldraine. Artifact creatures you control have flying, and at the beginning of your combat on your turn, you may have target non-artifact creature you control become a 0/0 artifact creature. If you do, you put 4 +1/+1 counters on it. It slowly transforms your non-artifacts into non-creature artifacts into creature artifacts, but it is very expensive to do, and it's a creature, so it can be easily removed. Command Tower, of course. Crack Open is for 2 generic and 1 green. Destroy target artifact enchantment and create a treasure token. Now this is cute. There are better removals, but this is cute because at least on the back end it allows you to create a treasure token. Evolving Wilds. always here. Fracture Butthole, always here. Gruul Signet, oh, this is nice. This is very nice. It allows you to fix the mana. And then you get the Isness Signet. This is really, really good. At least you get some signets. That's not bad at all. I wonder if you get any talismans as well. Path of Ancestry. Reverse Engineer. 3 generic and 2 blue. You improvise. Improvise, we've already discussed this. And then draw 3 cards. Not bad. It can help you draw 3 cards really quickly if you have a lot of artifacts to do this. It's not a bad draw effect. They're better in blue, but hey, it does synergize with our deck, so why not? Root out, destroy target enchantment or artifact, and you investigate. Okay, again, artifact enchantment, I would maybe use one, but not both, because there are like better removals, and you realistically, yes, on the back end you can create, but when you're removing, you really want to remove the trouble on the board, not just create it. But hey, you know, it's an extra. Basically, how I look at these cards is if it takes the spot of something like that, then yes, it's kind of like an extra token generator, because in the end you're creating tokens at the end of each turn, so that's not bad. So Simic Growth Chamber, okay. Simic Signet, okay. Wow, we're getting all the signets in this one. Terramorphic Expanse. Thoughtcast, affinity for artifacts that allows to draw 2 cards. This is a very good draw card. Replicating Ring. This is a snow artifact. This is a very beautiful card. For 3 generic, you tap to add 1 mana of every color. And at the beginning of your upkeep, you put a night counter on Replicating Ring. Then if it has 8 or more 9 counters, remove all of them and create 8 colorless snow artifact tokens named the Replicating Ring with tap to add 1 mana of any color. This is a decent card. I like this one. Now, don't get me wrong, there are better mana generators in the artifact slot, but if you look at some of the early cards, which if I'm not mistaken, what was this? Yeah, so the Skyclave Relic, for example, I would definitely go over the Replicating Ring over this Skyclave Relic, because, well, basically you wait 8 turns. If it doesn't get removed, you have a lot of tokens just because of it. I also just like the idea. It's cool. Okay, Signet, of course. Combine Chrysalis, Simic for 1 blue and 1 green. Oh, it's an artifact. Okay. Creatures tokens you control have flying. That's really good for Gimbal. And then for 2 generic Simic, tap to sacrifice a token. You create a 4/4 green beast creature token and activate only as a sorcery. So that's not bad. You can sacrifice any token and transform it into green beast. This is a really good artifact that I think you should keep. Curse of Opulence. This is an aura curse. For 1 red is an enchantment. You can enchant a player, and whenever the enchanted player is attacked, you create a gold token. Each opponent attacking the player does the same. Aha, so this is not a bad card, but I tend to stay away from cards personally that also give advantages to my opponents, because yes, it's a political card and it can sway sometimes the board and you know, forcing your opponents to attack someone else other than yourself, but at the same time you're giving everybody a lot of advantage, and yeah, that's something I don't want to do. Frontier Buvak, of course. Girpur Ether Grid, which is a 2 generic and 1 red enchantment. Tap 2 untap artifacts you control, and this deals 1 damage to any target. Not bad. Again, yes, you're doing more stuff with your untapped artifacts, but there's better. Junk Winder, a 5/6 serpent with affinity for tokens. Okay, this is interesting. So it's 5 generic and 2 blue, and whenever token enters the battlefield and you control, tap target non-land permanent opponent controls. It doesn't tap during its controller's next unstop step. Now, this is very expensive, but if you build it right, this could be a really good card in your deck, because it allows to basically icy manipulate your opponent's cards. So that's really, really, really good. And yeah, I mean, if you can find a way to generate an insane amount of tokens, and then whenever a token is generated, you create more of that token, this one can really skyrocket into tapping a lot of opponents, and then you just go face and goodbye. So it's not bad. And on top of that, you know, you can have, I don't know, 5 tokens on board, and this one costs 2 blues, so it's not bad. Definitely better than some of the cards that I've seen so far. Myriad Landscape. Reality Shift. This is an instant 1 blue and 1 generic. Exile target creature as control and manifest the top card of the library, which means that that player puts the top card of the library onto the battlefield face down as a 2/2 creature. If it's a creature card, it can be turned face up at any time for its mana cost. there are better removals in these colors. Ooh, Saheeli, Sublime Artificer from the War of Ravnica. This is a 1 generic, either blue and red ×2, and it's a Planeswalker. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, create a 1/1 colorless servo artifact creature token with 5 loyalty, and then -2 it. Target artifact you control becomes a copy of another target artifact or creature you control until the end of turn, except it's an artifact in addition to its other types. This is very good. This is good for what we're trying to achieve in the deck, because you can transform creatures into artifacts, right? And yes, they become copies until the end of the turn, but hey, you get extra artifacts, so that's not bad. Okay, Soul Ring. There are better cards, of course, but it was not bad. Okay, Struggle and Survive. This is one of those split cards. It has, on the struggle side, is a 2 generic and 1 red instant. Struggle deals combat damage to target creature equal to the number of lands you control. And then from the Survive side, which is an Aftermath card, which means you can cast it from the graveyard for 1 generic and 1 green. Each player shuffles their library and graveyard together. I don't like it as much, this one. Tireless Provisioner is a 3/2 Elf Scout for 2 generic and 1 green. Has landfall, so whenever land enters the battlefield under your control, you create a food token or treasure token. Not bad actually, because with landfall this can actually skyrocket really quickly. I like this one. Vampire's Vengeance is an instant for 2 generic and 1 red. It deals 2 damage to each non-vampire creature, and you create a blood token. There are better blood token generators. It does deal 2 damage to each non-vampire creature, but you're also dealing 2 damage to your own creatures here because you don't have a lot of vampires. So yeah, I would definitely use much better blood token generators. Weirding Wood is an enchantment aura for 2 generic and 1 green. It enchants a land, and when it enters the battlefield, you investigate, and then enchanted land has tap to add 2 mana of any one color. Not bad. It allows you to investigate. Definitely something that could be played if you don't have any better effects. Whirler Rogue is a 2/2 human rogue artificer for 2 generic and 2 blue. When it enters the battlefield, you create 2 1/1 color Stutter artifact creatures token with flying. Tap 2 untap artifacts you control. Target creature can't be blocked this turn. It's not bad. I'm seeing a theme though here. Oh, and then we get to the land. You get 8 islands, 8 mountains, and 7 forests. Now, what do we think of this deck? Realistically, it's not a bad deck as a precon. It is a really, really cool and fun mechanic, because your commander really wants you to do everything in your power to create more and more tokens, artifacts that have their own name and that are unique. What you're doing is you're either creating tokens of those ones, because again, this bumps up, differently named artifact tokens you control, so it pumps up the gremlins on the tokens that are differently named. Therefore, what you want to be doing is removing some of the cards that, are redundant, that create thopters or treasures or clues, and then add some of the ones that create other treasure tokens that you haven't seen before, or realistically focus more on the cards that can create tokens and make them artifacts, or just create tokens of cards that are as well artifacts. So this is the way that you want to do this. There are a lot of good removals as well. I like this counterspell, but that's about it. And there's better removals as usual, and that you can always improve. So realistically, this is a bit less strong than the counters deck, and definitely weaker than Sidar Jabari's Night Sarge. So yeah, I think I would give this overall a 5, a maximum of 5.5 score out of 10. It's not a bad one. It definitely needs a lot of tinkering to be able to get it to the point where you're consistently pumping your Gremlin tokens with other tokens. So realistically, what I would do is I would be looking at replacing at least half of the deck to make it a bit more fun. But it is definitely the funnest commander of the bunch, so the fun factor is probably at around an 8 or a 9 out of 10 here for me. So definitely keep that in mind. You can build it correctly and you're gonna have a lot of fun. So that's it from us, from Scotty and I. We thank you very much for watching, and we wish you a lovely day, a blessed day. Be good, be kind, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye!